obviously, the big news as of late has been, it certainly has dominated the news cycle, has been the death of Queen Elizabeth II. I have been blown away by just how obsequious the coverage of the Queen and the royal family has been. It's just been nothing but doting coverage, nothing but extreme adoration, no acknowledgement of what this family and what this royal family has done throughout history. And the response to people who dare to point out that they've been colonizers and imperialists are largely told that they're being disrespectful, and people have tried to cancel others for criticizing the Queen and the royal family. It has really been, coming from someone who is very cynical about the media, I have been absolutely floored by just how doting the coverage of Queen Elizabeth and the royal family has been. Obviously, you guys, and this is actually kind of made me reflect a little bit on something that I was perhaps like not accepting, but like just the existence of monarchies and royal families is so patently absurd on the surface. And I think a lot of us have just kind of like accepted that that's the reality. I mean, really give it a thought, you guys. Give it a thought. Why the fuck does the monarchy still exist? If anyone can give me an answer to that, I mean, honestly, it is patently absurd, totally arbitrary, and also very, very harmful. I think that royal families, I think it serves to, first of all, create and maintain patriotism, which I think is largely a very negative thing. I also think it like serves to make people sort of deify the elites, which I also think is an incredibly negative impact and something that is used to kind of control the masses. And I think that attitude also, applies to other forms of elites. I think it kind of like it has reverberating effects, and I think that's incredibly harmful. I also think it actually like plays into some of the very most sickly impulses that human beings have, in the sense that I think people tend to think like tend to think of certain genetics as superior, or like I think it plays into some of the very nastiest tendencies that human beings have as well. So on the surface, even having a monarchy in today's day and age is patently absurd and ridiculous. But this has gone a long way to revealing that. And for those that didn't see, I wish I would have brought this poll up now that I'm talking about this, but there's a very stark generational divide in the UK in terms of how the royal family is viewed. Those over 65 overwhelmingly think that the monarchy is good for the country. Those under 30 overwhelmingly think it is not. So I don't think that the monarchy will be around for very long, quite frankly. I think that younger generations have had it with this arbitrary nonsense. And I think that they're also probably kind of sick of being embarrassed on the national or on the international stage. Right, we're all like laughing at these traditions that the UK is engaging in right now. It's ridiculous. It's just totally meaningless and unnecessary and arbitrary, and it serves no purpose whatsoever. So obviously, Charles now becomes king, who himself is a rather unpalatable person, and has quite a list of transgressions in his past. To those who were kind of saying, like, how can someone like Charles rise to the throne? How can someone like that become the head of the church and the state? Well, go look up Henry VIII. Or I just, I think I said the wrong name. Who did I just say? You guys, I'm sorry. I'm losing my mind. I've been at work all day. Anyway. You get the point. The history of the royal family is full of these kinds of transgressions. There's no reason that the royal family should be treated as a legitimate institution at all. And I have a few things that I want to show you guys here. So first of all, this is a tweet from Peter Darker, and it points out that roughly every 6 days in the world, a country celebrates its independence from Britain. They say this is why you don't mourn imperialists and colonialists. It's the most widely celebrated holiday in the world. Look at this map, you guys. I just want to bring this up full screen so that you can see. Look at that map. I mean, it's just everywhere. This is the impact that the British royal family has had on the world. They have wreaked havoc all over the world. They have been a negative for human relations and for societies all over the world, and we're all just expected to, bow down and celebrate the life of the queen, who very much participated in this colonialism and this imperialism. So totally agree with Peter. You do not mourn imperialists and colonial and colonizers. And just very quickly on that note, you guys, I've never quite understood why it is that people seem to they think that you have to take this period after somebody dies where you're not honest about them out of respect. I'm sorry, you don't earn my respect by dying. You earn my respect by how you live your life. And dying is not a respect-earning thing. I do not respect Queen Elizabeth, and I would argue with anybody who does. I think you're wrong. I think she was a horrendous human being who did nothing but harm to the world. And to those who want to say, Britain became a commonwealth under her reign. Do you think that was by choice? The reason all of these countries celebrate their independence from Britain is because they had to fight for it, and Britain fought against them in gaining that independence. They did not willfully give up power. The queen is not some sort of virtuous character here. So you do not have to respect somebody just because they died. The queen was a colonizer and an imperialist, and we all should call that out in this moment. And I also want to point out, you guys, the reason it's in the news at all, the reason that a death makes the news is because of who they are in the public. So what they do in the public is automatically necessarily relevant. It's not like a deflection to her transgressions. She is only making the news because of the role that she played in the world. So we should talk about the role that she played in the world. Okay? I also wanted to show you guys a quote here. This is by James Connolly. And this really kind of sums up a lot of the way I feel about this. He says, "We at least are not loyal men. We confess to having more respect and honor for the raggedest child of the poorest laborer in Ireland today than for any, even the most virtuous, descendant of the long array of murderers, adulterers, and madmen who have sat upon the throne of England." Absolutely spot on. That should be our response to the death of Queen Elizabeth. Okay? Let's see here. I also wanted to point out, there was recently, this is a tale perhaps more often told in the United States, but a unarmed black man was killed by the Met Police in London, and the Sky News decided that they were going to totally misrepresent what this clip actually is. So I'm going to show you guys this tweet here. This is by Franklin Saint. "I am lost for words. Sky News reporting the Justice for Chris Kaba march as a tribute walk for the Queen's death." You guys can see here, they're showing coverage of a march through the streets. This is to protest the police murder of Chris Kaba. Sky News says they must be, there to support the Queen. They must be paying their respects to the Queen. And I think part of what makes this so incredible to me is that I actually believe that was a genuine mistake. I think people that are sitting in producer rooms at places like Sky News, I think that they actually are so in a bubble that when they see a march like that, they just think, oh, it must be about the Queen, because nothing else is going on that people would care about, and everyone cares about the Queen. I think that's their mentality. And that just, that says a whole lot about the mainstream media and how it plays such an important role in propping up monarchies and the elite. So I also wanted to show you guys here, I have a piece in The Intercept about, I mentioned earlier that people are attempting to cancel others for daring to criticize the monarchy. This by Sam Biddle. Again, it's in The Intercept. "Twitter censored professor's post for abusive behavior toward the Queen. The policy was invoked to protect the world's longest reigning monarch who died that day from being silenced. A Twitter spokesperson said the social media giant deleted a Carnegie Mellon University professor's controversial tweet condemning Queen Elizabeth II on the grounds that it was abusive. The company defines abusive behavior as an attempt to harass, intimidate, or silence someone else's voice. in this case, the voice of the world's longest reigning monarch. Was a banner day for posting. As soon as news of the Queen's impending death hit Twitter, the platform was quickly dominated by a global outpouring of both grief and glee, a heated mixture of paeans to the Queen's 70-year tenure and angry denunciations of the British monarchy's legacy of colonial violence and exploitation. Among the latter was Carnegie Mellon University's Uju Anya, an associate professor of second language acquisition. She writes, quote, "I heard the chief monarch of a thieving, raping, genocidal empire is finally dying. May her pain be excruciating." Quote, "We took enforcement action on the account you referenced for violating the Twitter rules on abusive behavior," Twitter spokesperson Lauren Myers Kavanagh, using the British spelling of behavior, wrote to The Intercept in response to a query. The removal of the post illustrates how criticisms of powerful people, however distasteful, can be disappeared from social media sites for murky reasons. Quote, "It does highlight the power imbalances that can often exist in the way these platforms treat powerful figures." Evelyn Dueck, an assistant professor, at Stanford Law School and scholar of content moderation policies, told The Intercept. Quote, "Often people in power get allowances because it's in the public interest, but people don't for criticizing them, even though that's often clearly in the public interest too." Anya's tweet immediately attracted widespread attention and criticism, not least because it was reproachfully, quote, tweeted by Amazon founder Jeff Bezos. "This is someone supposedly working to make the world better," the second richest American tweeted. "I don't think so. Wow." Twitter users were quick to point out that Anya had recently tweeted approvingly of Chris Smalls, a rising labor leader instrumental in efforts to unionize Amazon warehouses. So, gee, I wonder why Jeff might have a beef with this professor. I just want to say the petty side of me just absolutely loves how The Intercept says the second richest American in describing Jeff Bezos, because you know that it just eats him alive that he's not the richest, right? So I just love how they threw that nice little jab in there. My take on this side of things, obviously, this is what cancel culture actually looks like, you guys. The right loves to bitch and moan about cancel culture, but they are the very first to be like, tagging the company that someone works for, saying, "Did you know your employee was being mean to the Queen?" They're the very first ones to try to get people fired or cause professional consequence to people who have opinions that they do not like. It's the very definition of cancel culture, and that's exactly what the conservatives have done here to this professor. My other take, though, and I wish I could give credit. I saw a few different people tweet this, so this is probably not any sort of groundbreaking concept. But I think people like Jeff are realizing for the very first time that their death will also be celebrated widely on Twitter, and I think they're throwing a temper tantrum over it. Obviously, characters like Jeff Bezos will have a large portion of Twitter celebrating their passing. That is just the reality, you guys. And like I said, I mean, you earn my respect in how you live your life. I am not going to pretend to like or respect somebody just because they have recently passed. I just don't think that's logical or reasonable, and to whatever extent I am trusted to bring you guys news and opinion and commentary, I would be violating that promise if I refused because someone had just passed. If I got up here and said, "Listen, guys, we can talk about the Queen in a month, but for now I'm going to be respectful," that would not be me doing my job here, right? And I think that same thing applies to general discourse as well. So absolutely stunned by just how obsequious the coverage has been. I knew it would be, but the extent of it is just absolutely incredible, you guys. Spain, wall-to-wall coverage of the Queen. The United States, wall-to-wall coverage of the Queen. A monarch in another country dies, and the whole world is like, "Oh, God, rest in peace." I mean, it really is kind of a condemnation of the human species in a broad sense, that we still allow ourselves to be so easily tricked into caring about something as arbitrary as the royal family. And I will leave it at that, but I felt the need to address the media on this one. So anyhow, I do have one more fantastic clip to show you guys here really quick. This is Anthony Bourdain, and it reminds me why I miss Anthony Bourdain so much. This is very quick. I'm sure a number of you saw this, but this kind of sums up the way that I think the monarchy should be talked about and treated.
Cheers.
Gentlemen, cheers. To the Queen.
No, I hate the aristocracy.
it kind of cut off there at the end. But no, I hate the aristocracy, man. He just stops dead, doesn't even take a sip, just stares at the guy. Anthony Bourdain, absolutely fantastic. Just a totally brief side note. One of my favorite quotes ever was Bourdain. He says, if you have ever been to Cambodia, you will never stop wanting to beat Henry Kissinger to death with your bare hands. I'm pretty sure I got that word for word. One of the better quotes I've ever heard. Anthony Bourdain, that is someone I will say rest in peace to. That is someone who deserves the respect and adoration, unlike Queen Elizabeth II.